How you look at it, it really is a tragedy. 31-year-old Philip Moreno is dead. 51-year-old Sherry Wilkins is charged with his murder in a deadly DUI. Moreno was crossing a street in Torrance when he was hit. Police say Wilkins drove more than 2 miles with him, basically through her windshield, before somebody finally got her to stop. Wilkins worked as a drug and alcohol counselor. Now, I want to bring in a man named Jeremy Stanton. Jeremy is owner-operator of Haven House. It's a sober living centers, and a former addict yourself. You were well on your way to completing your certification as a drug counselor. Then you became an owner.
Yes.
So you called yourself a
owner-operator.
Owner-operator, and you're well. What's your you're certificated?
Certificated. I actually completed the educational requirement for KDAC certification.
All right, so Jeremy, when you heard this story, were you surprised?
To be honest, it's a really difficult, and I think people have a misconception that because we work in recovery, that somehow we are emotionally or spiritually more sound than any other person that works in any other field. I mean, you have to realize on a day-to-day basis, you're working with people who are suffering from a fatal disease, and the emotional toll that it takes on a counselor is pretty devastating.
Isn't one of the recommendations when you go through a sober living treatment that maybe you not spend a lot of time around other addicts and alcoholics?
It's a different capacity. That's a lifestyle commitment. Right? Me personally, I don't hang out in bars. But as far as it is part of my ongoing recovery to help other people in recovery, I mean, that's basically the foundation for what I do.
Now, with Sherry Wilkins, she was hired by this particular treatment center. I think they have about 6 different locations.
Outpatient.
You hire people as well who are drug and alcoholism counselors. What do you look for? How do you know that these people have not relapsed?
Well, my hiring process is slightly different because I tend to hire from within my own company. So when I have young men who actually I get to work with on a day-to-day basis as a person in recovery, I look for that person that has the fortitude and sort of the passion for recovery. And then I usually will bring them in on a staff level and train them and have them work under.
Okay.
And then have them go back to school.
But how would somebody who, for example, was overseeing Sherry Wilkins know whether or not she was drinking or not?
They wouldn't. I mean, that's the difficult part is, you know, if she can show up every day to work sober and not indicate or be intoxicated at work, how would they know?
Exactly.
So that's the difficult part. So I think this is a very tragic situation where you have somebody that works in the field, and I think there might be some expectation because she works in the field that she's in a position of impunity or of not necessarily being subject to a relapse herself.
So you believe that it is okay for addicts to help others? There are, in fact, you told me that, would you say, most of the counselors are recovering addicts themselves?
Right, because there is a certain bonding connection with one person in recovery helping another person in recovery. There's definitely an emotional and spiritual connection.
Is there a greater chance of relapse when you are in that capacity as a former addict?
I would say in early recovery, yes, because a huge component of working with other addicts is taking on and personalizing their struggles. And on an emotional level, it's very difficult to be in that environment on a day-to-day basis and not have it take its emotional toll.
Now, we don't know what her certification was, but in order to be certified, you have to go through 315 hours of training. You have to have, what is it, 2,000?
Well, it's actually 315 hours of education. And 2,000 hours of supervised internship.
And 2,000 hours of supervised. And by that time, one would think that you are committed to your profession and would not want to do anything to put it in jeopardy.
Well, let me just step in and just give you from my own experience is just because you work in the field, once again, or you have 2,000 hours of internship, that really does not put you in a place where emotionally and spiritually you're any more fit than anyone else.
Right.
I mean, so it really depends on a personal level what her ongoing process to her own recovery is, not other people's recovery.
Good point.
And there's a big difference.
Jeremy Stanton, thank you very much for coming in.
My pleasure.
Chris.